Hello, Teresa here. Firstly, I apologise if there's a problem with the microphone, but it will get better as we go along. The Aubrey Beardsley book here is to inspire you, but let's crack on with some housekeeping and start with our names. Angie Rue from New Zealand, Kiara Angie, Carol Bogdan, Colorado Blue Skies, Lucia Helena Cusini, Michelle Phillips, Glenn Leader, Kathy Courtney, Linny Pease Place. Linny, that was from 7 months ago. I actually found your comment, so I'm sorry if I didn't get back to you. Regina Crystal Journals, Jean Cole, Robin Sabo, Angie again, Elisa Lite, Valerie Noble, Fabiana Segato, Karen Houston, Rachel Quebedo, Kathleen Roosh, Betty Aldemar, Jill Parkhurst, Kath Avalon. Kath, I'm extremely proud of you for using the vegetable netting. And the excitement that gives when you look at half a dozen apples or oranges in brightly coloured netting and you think, oh, never mind about the fruit, I want the netting. So I did feel your excitement, and I just know how you feel. Carol Durst, Frances Britton, Laurie Nicholas, Linda Bloomer, Kay Borland, Itaya Lightbourne, Susan Taylor Brown, Joyce Eiley or Illy, Joy Johnson, Claire Rogers. Claire, thank you for that lovely comment. I feel that I have to mention that. Lynn Wessel or Vessel, Kathy Courtney, Helia Marie, Helen Toniti, Jenny Sutton. Blessings to you too, Jenny. I am Mona Rankin, and I am Mona. I hope I've pronounced that right. Tammy Adams, Vilma Alvarez, Holly Grantham, and Holly Grantham Diamonds, or just Diamonds. I've written this down in a hurry, so if that's two people, I do apologise. I've made you into one person. Hummer Klein, Hummer, I'm pleased to see that you're doing the slow stitch journal using the tea bags. Part 15. Lisa Taylor, Diane Griesick, Pippa Moore. Pippa, your sister-in-law and I are practically neighbours. She's in Essex, a county up from me, and you say that we speak the same. Well, that is estuary. So say hello to your sister-in-law for me. Christina Lothman. Christina, you mentioned that you're about the pictures that I used last time in the bag, and you're going to use pictures of dahlias, and I love dahlias. The only thing that puts me off, my mum used to grow them, and if am I right in saying they're full of earwigs, but which used to freak me out a little bit, but they are absolutely gorgeous, and I can see how you could use those in your work. Global Hiker, Mary Coohool, Surin Cole. Now Surin, I think I've actually got your name right now. Thank you for your comment on how to pronounce your name and that the T is silent. Shirley Haberl. Shirley, I found your name as well tucked away in the back of Beyond on YouTube, and I know by the notification beside your name that I didn't actually reply, so apologies Shirley if you're watching this. Blessings Day by Day, isn't that gorgeous? Suzanne Trussner, Ladybugs Lovelies. Ladybugs, thank you so much for all your comments. I've really enjoyed reading them, thank you very much. So Euphoria, Susan Kinney or Kine, Violets DR, Harsha Coedia, Embrace the Season with Jackie, Onbra Barawoba. Onbra, I hope I've pronounced that properly. Your name's written in a font that I don't really understand, so I've had to make an approximation of what I think the the font says. So I do hope that is your name. Ladybug's lovely again. Nice to hear from you. And Ladybugs, I think your name is actually Pat, isn't it? So welcome, Pat. Family Rich 77. Hello, Rebecca. Coping with Grace. Yes, I know, I understand that name. I really do, and I like that very much. Coping with Grace. Jackie Clausen and Samantha Matthews. Now, I think I've got everyone there. Welcome to you all. Having got the housekeeping out the way, we'll now carry on with the project. How exciting is this? Well, I hope you enjoy it. We can now start with our project, and it's about Aubrey Beardsley. So sit back and enjoy. Aubrey Beardsley was very much influenced by Art Nouveau. It's a style dating from the end of the 19th century, around about 1890, and it uses flowing and swirly lines to resemble plants and organic growth. But it wasn't just confined to art galleries, but it became accessible to everyone through everyday objects, household objects, brushes, combs, mirrors, everything. Lots of things were decorated in this style. I think some of the best examples of Art Nouveau in European architecture can be seen in cities like Prague, Budapest and Vienna. Oh, and the metro stations in Paris. Last week I did go to the Tate Britain to see the Aubrey Beardsley exhibition. I'm just going to show you this leaflet. Opened it up, expecting the biography here, which it is. And look at this! Oh my goodness, what a treasure! And that was free. As we've done before in previous work, taken two forms of inspiration from paintings and we've married them. We're going to do the same here. Pictures we're going to use are both from Beardsley's Le Mort d'Arthur. This one is called How Sir Bedivere Cast the Sword Excalibur into the Water. Now I'm going to marry these two. Now quite a lot of Beardsley's work have these beautiful Art Nouveau inspired borders. So I'd like to take the border of this and use the heads. Maybe the heads inside. He used opposite colours on neutrals, black and white. He used the black ink on the white background, and we have some black here as well, all black and white. We're going to use opposites as in complementary colours. We've still got the contrast going on, but we're doing it to suit our design. Make these two colour wheels are using exactly the same pieces here, the same from the same sheets of paper. Now can you see the difference in intensity when you put the colour on white? The intensity isn't as sharp or as bold as the intensity on black. These are the complementary colours are all opposite each other. So to complement green we have red. The complementary colour of orange is blue and yellow is purple. So each one is opposite its complementary colour. So what we want to do is take two of these colours that complement each other. Now I automatically go for red and green because I love those two colours. Then I thought, no, let's step out of my comfort zone a bit and use maybe purple and yellow. So I have a bit of a dilemma going on here at the moment. We're going to use perhaps a satiny, silky type of fabric that is going to show the stitching really well. We're going to use Italian quilting. Now don't be put off by this rather fancy title. It is really a doddle, but it has the most stunning and amazing effect. This was a piece of work that I did a long time ago. It's a bit tatty, it's been exhibited and all sorts over the years. So it is, I love it, but look, it's falling to pieces. Now this here is Italian quilting. I did this with the sewing machine. These lines here are all machine sewn.
we're not going to do that. We're going to use our slow stitch. I mean, obviously, if you wanted to use your sewing machine, that's up to you. Have some couching here. These areas here are couched. You might just be able to pick up some wool here, all the way around here. Now, believe it or not, this is from a tiny piece of tree bark, from one single line on a tree bark. And that was the original line here. This is all Italian quilting from the back. So between the machine stitches, I came in from the back between the background fabric and the front fabric and ran a needle of thread all the way around here. Sometimes I had one piece of thread which raised it lightly, and then another time I had 2, 3, 4, as many as I could squeeze in, and you get the contrast here of flat against raised. And you also, I hope you can see it on the screen, you pick up areas of shade as well, light and dark areas. So that's another contrast going on. And here we have short lines and long lines, very curvy there. So this is what we're not going to copy this at all. We're going to be guided by this, okay? Now, as you can see here, look, round here is like a border, just very much like we have on the Art Nouveau border here. Got the border there. Only this just goes around 2 sides. These raised areas here, these really great big deep areas, has been used with another quilting technique called trapunto. And then with your stuffing, you would stuff inside in the background, you'd stuff that, as much stuffing as you want, and then you would over sew and then turn it over and you'd have this effect. So that is trapunto. I'm not sure whether we'll be using that, but we might do. Now, I sorted out some fabric. As always, the background will be calico. Now, my first port of call was a frame, and I decided on this frame, and it did have a picture on there, tatty old picture. I've taken the picture off and cut my thumb rather badly with some sort of gadget I found in a toolbox. But anyway, it's not bleeding so much now. I'm going to keep this that size. So that would be like this. I want it that size. Played about with this a little bit, sort of how am I going to attach the fabric and about lacing it, and then I thought this is silly because I do actually have a large embroidery frame, and then I remembered why I haven't been using my embroidery frame. It's because, and that will go there, it's because I lost the little screw here. You see the screw there. So in the toolbox I saw some garden ties, and I've used a garden tie on there and it works lovely. So I'm going to be doing this embroidery, this slow stitch, in a frame because we're going to be quilting, so we don't want the slow stitch to really crumple up the fabric too much, because we need to be able to put the thread in between the background and the front to pull the thread through, and if the slow stitch has crinkled it up, it's going to be problems. Now my calico is just slightly bigger, and because I actually cut this for that frame I showed you a minute ago, so my calico will just fit in there nicely. Now on top of the calico I'll be putting a background. Now at the moment, oh, it's been a headache, half-hour headache. I've come up with this, keeping in the black and the white of Aubrey's ink illustrations. The back is, I think, possibly nicer than the front, so I've got that one, and then this once again, which actually I think gives the I prefer this one because it's pretty, but this one, it just gives the impression of hair. So I'm not sure about this one. And then we have the plain black, and I thought this was black, but it isn't. It's actually navy blue. So I'm going to stick that one on the floor. So I have 3 choices there. That one, and this one. I mean, this one is gorgeous, isn't it? But this one does actually could look like the hair. Oh, or a zebra. So anyway, I'm going to put those there. And then, oh, headaches, headaches. The colours for the applied shape, the applique around here. It's the same method that we've used before in the past, applique, and then the slow stitch. So applique, these are the complementary colours I've come up with, red and green, which I feel comfortable working with, but I need to break away from the comfort zone, I think. But I do love those colours. Put those on the floor there. These as well, which I'm not so comfortable with, but that could be a good thing. So complementary colours again, the blue and the orange has quite a nice pattern on it already, which gives it areas of dark and light, as you can possibly see on the screen. So we have those 2. Actually, now I'm looking at that on the screen, that's not so bad, is it? So I'm going to stick that to that side on the chair. And we have another set of orange and blue. So actually, I've got 2 sets of orange and blue. So that must say something, mustn't it, about the red and the green, or the purple and the yellow. And this is quite nice because these are sheer. These are very soft fabrics, which I think might look nice on there. The only problem is the background shows through. Now, is that a problem or isn't it? Does that add to the depth or not? So this is my next task, to choose a background. And I actually do like these pattern ones, and we have the pattern against the plain fabrics. If you see, these are all plain fabrics. Even this one, which has a design in the weave, in the makeup, is still a plain colour. So that is the contrast between the pattern and the plains. I think I'm going to dispense with that one on the floor. That one's on the floor. So now it's just a choice between either of these and either of these. That one actually looks yellow up against that vivid orange. So maybe I might have to get rid of that one in favour of that. We'll see. I'm going to play around with that now and set this all up, hopefully. And then we'll start on transferring the design onto the background fabric. Oh, this is going to be difficult, isn't it? I'll be a moment. Well, I've made my decision, and true to the idea of a progression of an idea, as I looked at the fabric, an idea certainly did progress, and I changed my mind about the background completely. I've now consigned the black and white pieces to the floor, and I thought this would make an ideal background, this beautiful rich orange colour, and I do like this design here. Now just checking the back's the same. And then I thought, well, if I'm using that for the background, it was supposed to be for the hair. What am I going to do for the hair? So I took a pair of blue. Now and this was paired with that. So this will be one head of hair. Let's see. This will be, say, that head of hair. So I needed another piece for this hair. Well, I didn't fancy doing the whole lot in the same blue, because then it could end up looking like just one mass of blue blob. So stick that there. I went back to my workbox and I thought I might have just a thing there. And this tiny little piece here will be, it's still blue. Yeah, it's coming out on the screen not so blue, but it's darker than this blue, but it is still blue, so it is still complementary to this yellow, sorry, this orange. So one head will be in this and the other will be in that. Now I've taken a photocopy of this. Oops, where are we? I've taken a photocopy of this and I've cut them out. I've just cut them out as they are. I'll tell you in a minute why that keeps sticking. Right, so I've cut them out. So that one will go there. That will probably be in that piece, although it might change yet. And this piece will be in that colour, or vice versa, I'm not sure yet. And then I shall just put them together and apply them down. As usual, I'll apply them down, I'll cut round them, pin them on the background, and then just tack around them just to catch them. So that will be the next task, but after I've put the backing in the frame. Now the backing needs to go in the frame at the moment. Now I cut my pieces for the other frame that I showed you, the wooden one, and I cut it so this is just a bit short for the round one, but I'm still going to use it. The size of the calico piece here, there, is 13 inches square. Okay, so this, the diameter of this frame is 12, so I haven't got a lot to play with either side. In fact, I have very little. So what I've done to help, on this side here, this side and then opposite, I've put just a little bit of double-sided sellotape just to help it cling. Now I'm going to put that there. And if I can put it in shot, it would help. I'm going to pop that there and then put this over here. You see the calico just about covers it, but there is a little bit to play with. And then I'm going to pop this on as well. Okay, so now the calico actually takes that double-sided sellotape, so I might actually, if this doesn't work, put double-sided sellotape inside of here to catch the orange, but let's just have a go anyway. So this will go, let's pull that down. I think it's okay in length, it's just the width, and that will go down like that. Right in there. Wow, that is a bit, yes, I can see at this stage I'm going to have to do something here either side. Now I think I'll probably just pop some double-sided sellotape here, along here, and this side, because it is short, or move that over. Yeah, I think that might be best actually. I'm going to move it over and just pop this on one side. But let's just see if it was going to play ball at the moment. Whoa. Oh, that garden tie is certainly doing its job. There. Right. So that's that. Just tighten that up a bit. Oh, my heavens. And hopefully that might hold. That might hold the whole time, because I find when I work with this frame in particular, the screw works loose. Well, actually, yeah, this is proof, isn't it? The screw works so loose it's fallen off and I don't know where it is. So there we go, that is rather nice. So I'm just going to pop a tiny bit of double-sided under here, just to, oh my goodness, it's all over the place, just to hold that tight, keep that in place. Under we go. Now because I've got this thing on my thumb, It's going to be difficult to take that off. So I'm going to take that off camera. I need a pin because my nails are too short to do it. Right, so what I'll do is I'm going to take that off, the backing of the double-sided sellotape, and then I'll bring this edge over and stick it down. And that is nice and taut. So there we go. So that's the next thing. I'll just fix that, that's no problem. And then I will cut out the heads, decide which way I want these, the darker blue at the top or the lighter blue. I'll work that out, and then as soon as I've done that, I'm going to pin the shapes down, and then I'll tack round them, and then I'll get back. There, I've stretched it out. I've pulled it as far as I can get it, and it did get to the end of the frame, but it looks a bit messy around here and around here. But don't worry about that, because the bit that we'll be working on here is nice and flat, so the edges here aren't a problem. So that's nicely stretched out. I've added another tie here, so now there are 2 garden ties there. And who said that textile art was nice and dainty and something really pleasant to do? These are the tools I've been using. Good grief. See, any wonder I've been snipping my fingers all over the place. But it's done now, so I'm quite pleased with that. Nice and flat. Now, part of the design process, when you're designing for inspiration, as you know, is to exaggerate some areas or eliminate others. So what I've done, I'm going back to the picture. I'm going to eliminate the hand and the lettering at the top. I don't want those in my finished piece, so I'm going to ignore those. I'm going to eliminate them. Now, with the photocopy, I cut out the shapes. So now, if you've noticed, we're not using any interfacing. Normally we go in for interfacing, iron-on violin, or whatever you prefer to use, and this time we're not. And the reason is we want to keep the fabric soft to accommodate the thread that we'll be using between these 2 layers. Whoops, where are we? These 2 layers, the calico and the front. We'll be putting the thread between the 2 and padding it out. Now, the interfacing would stiffen these up quite a bit, as you know, and it would make it too stiff to have much effect on the thread that we're going to put in. So I've deliberately left these without interfacing. So these will now be put into place. And as before, as we've done before on some of our projects, keep the piece around the edge. Okay, the shape that you cut these from, keep them, and that way you have a rough idea of where to place them. There we go. So it doesn't have to be exact, just a nice, oh dear me, I've got that sellotape on my hand. Right, so roughly there. Oh gosh, and I've moved it again. So that was a brilliant idea, using that tape. So these are now going to be tacked as usual, and then pinned as usual, and then tacked all the way around the edge, just clipping it. This needs to be clipped around here as well, so it's quite important. There, I've overlapped that, so we've got a nice, doesn't fit together like a jigsaw there. I've just overlapped it. So that I'm going to pin that all the way around, and then not all the way around, what am I on? I'm going to pin that just to hold it down, and then I'll tack around the edge, all the way around the edge. Nice long tacking stitches. If I can find the needle. Yes, I did have the needle here all threaded up with oh, there it is. I'm now going to tack all the way around the edge. Now I won't do all of this on the camera because you all know what tacking stitch is. Nice big tacking stitches. Position your frame so it feels nice and comfortable. And actually I've got quite a shelf here to lean on. And that's all I'm going to do, all the way around the edge of this to hold it in place. And I do advise you do this because it will stop the pieces of applique flapping about all over the place. Right, you don't need to see me do all the way around the edge. Now after I've done that, I'm going to place the faces. I've already cut the faces out here, so let's have a look. This one goes there. Now this is like a jigsaw, so that face will go there. And I've cut that out of the wrong fabric. I wanted to do that in dark blue. So let's start with this one. So this face, you see I've cut the face out here. I'm just going to pop it back. So that face will go there. And I will tack that down in place. So that's the face there. Now I have cut a face out here, but I did it in the wrong blue. I wanted to do that in this blue. So once I cut this out, once I do it again properly and cut it out in blue, it will fit back there. And what I've done is a little bit of counter change. I'm using this blue, the blue of the hair, as the blue of the face there, and this dark blue of the hair I'm going to use up here as the face. So there's a little bit of harmony and composition going on there. Now those are the next steps to finish the tacking, to pin the faces down, and then to tack the faces, and we'll be ready then to think about the stitching. Right, this is ready now to slow stitch. It's nicely tacked down in place. I'm going to use this for referral only, not to copy it, but just for an idea. I've got my thread here. I'm going to use an assortment of, oh that's a mess, I'm going to use an assortment of orange thread, 2 strands, not to the end, and a nice long thin needle with a nice long eye as well. It's not too thick, it's nice and thin. Now if you haven't got an embroidery stand, which I have in the bedroom, but sometimes it's big and it's heavy wooden, it's a bit too much effort to carry it around. Where I'm sitting at the moment at my work table, I had this, as you can see, this mat, and it's quite heavy, it's quite large. What is it, about 2 by 3 feet, so it's quite substantial. All I've done here, I've wedged the frame, the embroidery frame hoop, underneath this, and it's quite secure now, which means it's freed up my hands. I've now still got the 2 hands to work with. Now when you do this, because we're going to thread this wool from underneath through what we're going to call slow stitch tram lines, we need to keep our stitches in pairs, our rows of stitches in pairs, because as you can imagine, the thread needs to be encased within 2 rows of threads. Okay, you'll see what I mean later. Now the tram lines, I'm going to call these tram lines now, the pair of slow stitching lines need to be thick enough or wide enough to take a substantial sized needle which is thick enough and has an eye long enough to take a strand of double knit sewing thread or string about this thickness. So bear that in mind when you're doing your rows of slow stitching, your related lines. Bear in mind they need to be spaced wide enough to take a length of thread about the thickness of a double knit between them. Okay, so imagine that sandwiched in between with a row of slow stitch either side. So I'm just going to stick this down now and we'll make a start. Now, as I said, I'm going to use this for reference only, but what I do like about this is that there is a join here. The crown of the head, there's a join there, so the lines don't run right the way across. Now, if the lines ran right the way across, I think it might look a bit strange with just a lot of arcs going round. So I'm actually going to be guided by this, and I'm going to finish and start my lines along there, along here. So where shall I start now? I think I'm going to start here, quite on the edge. I'm going to change my glasses as well. Lovely. You can see what I'm doing now. So like this. Now keep your stitches fairly small this time. Normally I say vary your stitches long and short, but because this is slow stitch with a twist, and that twist is the cording or the Italian quilting we're going to do, I'm saying just try to keep them a uniform size all the way round. You can actually backstitch this, use a backstitch or a sewing machine. Now that stitch there isn't looking very healthy, so I might nip that out before I get much further. So as you can see, this is what you're going to do all the way around. Now I'm sitting at the angle again, so this is quite tricky. So I'm using the orange thread on the blue. I don't want to go too much further because these stitches aren't looking too good, and I need to straighten up and do them properly. So I'm going to finish there, but I'm using the blue thread, orange thread on the blue, some more counter change. Now if I decide to do some stitches, a slow stitch around here, I will do that in blue. So blue on orange and orange on blue. I'm going to carry on now, see how far I get, and as soon as I've made headway, I'll get back and I'll update you. This took about 10 minutes to do so far, and it really is a lovely task to do. But as you're probably aware by now, looking at the screen, there's no hoop there. I took it out of the hoop, and it's quite easy to sew without the hoop. So if you do use your embroidery frame or hoop, and then you decide to take it out, then there's no harm done. You might not even want to use a hoop. It's just when I've done Italian quilting in the past, I've always found it best to use a hoop or a frame. But on this, because the fabrics are so soft, the needle is gliding through and there's no problem. So be guided by what you want and how you want to work. You might not need a frame. So I'm going to carry on now and come round here, and these larger shapes I'm going to break down later. I just want to get the basic slow stitching shapes in, the related lines, and then look at these and see if I'm going to curl them, swirl them, or what. So I'm going to carry on, and I'm really enjoying this. So be back again shortly.
So that's the slow stitch finished on the first head of hair there. I've used two different colours of orange thread. I've got a light colour and a darker one, and I've actually extended the sewing down here about 1/2 inch past the line of applique there. You can't actually see it on the screen from here. Whether I'll keep that, I don't know, or whether I'll cover it up later, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's as far as I've got there. I'm just going to go in to put the face here, just for effect. Oh yeah, that's not bad, that's not bad. So that was our inspiration, minus the hand. So I'm going to pop that one over there now. Next thing to do is concentrate on this piece here, which will go there. Now the stitching on this head is like an arc, an arch round here this way. It's curvy. Now in contrast to this, the curves here, this stitching will be done straight. So once again we have that contrast going on of curve, arc, arches, as opposed to straight. And I didn't realise that when we were actually looking at the picture. I don't think I mentioned that because it didn't occur to me. So this is where I am at the moment, and I'm going to carry on for a while because this really is fun and it's not taking too long either. So I'm going to carry on now for another hour or so, and hopefully in that time I might actually finish that bit. Who knows? Here's a finished piece now. Both heads have been slow stitched in place and the stitches forming the hair. I've put this round the edge so that you can get an overall opinion of what it's going to be like. Now I have removed the blue faces because the deep blue, the blue of the faces actually got lost into the background. I tried other colours, but white was the only colour that really made a difference. It worked and it stands out, so I'm keeping the faces white. What else did I do? The deep blue here has the deep blue here has made the bright orange look pink. That isn't pink, that is definitely orange. Right, the next step will be to sew the faces down, and then I will possibly lift that up now, possibly outline this in another colour, possibly black. I always think black's good for seaming and outlining, so I'll probably do that in black or deep blue feather stitch or a blanket stitch. So I'm going to put this to one side now and explain about the quilting, because after I've sewn these down in place it will actually be time to start the quilting. Now this is for demonstration purposes, our overly exaggerated demonstration piece. Now the amount of texture you get on your quilting will depend on how much stuffing, how many threads you put in there. At the moment, so you can see that, I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger. Oh, not much, is it? If you can see, that is very much raised, this here, and that's slightly raised, and this is the bit we're going to be working on here. Now this is very raised because I've got a pencil in there. That's it. I put the pencil in there just so you could see the effect that you'll get on a smaller piece. This, because it's so big, is going to take quite a lot of threads. I've used string and I've used strips of fabric for these two here. Now they're still not, I mean they are raised, but they're not as raised as I would like them. And this is the back. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. Now imagine these rows here are the rows you have around here. Okay, now the size of needle will depend on the closeness of your stitching. Now by rights, because this is so thick, these are so wide apart, I could do with a needle probably that thick or even thicker. I haven't got one of those, don't even know if they make them, so we're just going to have to improvise. Now all we're going to do here, you see it's a sandwich, just going to go in through the end and work it straight right the way around your shape. Curves are sometimes difficult if you have a very long needle, but as I said, the needle size will depend upon the distance of your lines and the thickness of the thread. So there we go, I've actually taken that through there, and that could do with several more of those because it's so thick. So that's all there is to it. Now I'm going to start this again. That is the one way of doing it. Now if you were coming in, say you didn't want to do all that, but you just wanted to do a part, so you didn't want to come in through either end but in the middle, what you would do very, very carefully with one of these tools, a sharp end, or even your scissors here, the point of your scissors, is just make a tiny hole, and this is how you could you'd finish off as well, a tiny hole just in the calico, making sure it doesn't go through to the front. So I'm just going to make a tiny hole here, making sure it doesn't go through the front. There, little hole there, just big enough to get your thread and your needle through, and then you would run it through there. Now I don't advise knotting this. If you've got a thick thread, I don't advise knotting it, because if you do this quite a lot, you're going to end up with big knots like this. Let's take this through. Big knots like that all over the place. So when you lie it down flat, you're going to have knots, bumps, not very nice at all. So very, very carefully, you could knot it just while you're working on it, but don't knot it tightly. So when you've taken it from wherever you want, you might want to bring it out here. So I've jumped the gun a little bit. If you want to bring it out there, then you just make another hole here, very carefully not to go right the way through. Bring your thread out here like that. Okay, so now you're only going to raise from that bit to this bit. So bring your thread out there, and then very, very carefully, oh, can't pick the needle up, very carefully. Now with two strands of thread in a finer needle, an ordinary sewing needle will do. You can make a knot in this, a little knot in that. Okay, I'm going to cut your thread here, and all you're going to do is very, very carefully over sew this. So we're going to start here, little knot here, and over sew it in place so it doesn't move free and work its way out. There we go, making sure not to go through to the front. A couple of stitches there, like so. Can you see those? A couple of stitches, then secure the end, and I'm just running it back through the string, through the thread, just a little way, and that's that done. Snip it off, and then you can trim that, and there you have it. And you'll do the same here. Undo this knot. That knot's just been there to stop you pulling the thread right the way through, and then you're going to do exactly the same here, down there. Now I advise that you keep the thread the way it naturally wants to fall, which is straight ahead of itself. Because if you don't, you're then going to turn it back on itself and cause a little bit of a bump here, a bit of a ridge there. So if you're going to do that, you might just as well leave the knot, because that ridge, once this is put flat, you're going to feel that ridge there, and you might even see it. So that is all you're going to do. So now that one will be over sewn as well in place, and that will stop that walking, and then you'll trim that off like that, and it's done. So that is Italian quilting. See, no secrets. Of course yours will be neater than this. This is wool, so yours will be a lot neater than mine. I've done mine in 10 seconds, but you'll be doing yours, oh, you'll be concentrating better than me. So there you go. This is the next thing that I'll be doing on here, and because my lines here are spaced, some of these are very close together, I can see I'll be changing my needle for the very narrow spaces, and then I'll be able to have a thicker needle for those that are wider apart. And of course I won't be doing all of them, I'm only picking out areas. So this is what I'll be doing for the next couple of hours, and as soon as I get any further on, I'll get back and I'll show you. So the quilting has now been done, and if I lift this up, you could get a better look at it. Yes, you can see the raised areas here where the cord, which was actually wool, has been threaded between the lines of sewing. So if I just move that about a little bit, it's easier to see on this one, I think, than on this one. I've left areas free of stitching just for the contrast, and there's some nice big deep lines there. So the quilting's been done. I've placed the faces, but I haven't secured them yet. I haven't sewn them in position, just in case I need to move them a little bit later. I've also outlined around the shape here, all the way around there and around there, with 2 strands of embroidery thread using a very small feather stitch. We've done the feather stitch before, so I don't think it's necessary for me to show you how to do that again. This will probably be the first video I haven't demonstrated it. So I've done that. Now, a little tip that when you're threading your needle through here and you're dragging the wool or the thread behind you to puff these out, if you've got a short needle, then as you're gathering it up, you're going to run out of space on your needle. Now when that happens, just drag it through the back. You see where I've done it here? Drag it through the back, and then disperse all the gathering that you have on your needle, and then take it back and start again, because some of these lines are too long to gather up on one needle, needle length I should say. So apart from that, I think that's all I've done. I used 2 strands of wool for most of these lines, but for the thicker ones I've used 4. This one maybe even 5. So it's up to you how puffy that you want yours. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start planning and working on the border. That will go there, on the border along here. I might do the border in hessian. Now I'm not quite sure yet. In this, I love working on hessian or burlap. I love working on this, and it's the texture is a complete contrast to this. So I'm thinking I've got the shine here and the matte here, and it's nice and smooth here, and it's not here. So at the moment I'm playing with this idea. So I think I might be cutting out a border in hessian like this, decorating the border, which will be the plain piece here, and then applying the heads on top. Now it's just an idea in progress. I've got some of these. Now we're using, if I have it here, let's have a look. We are being inspired by this. So if you can see the Art Nouveau influence, the swirls and the curls and the twists and how it flows and how very organic it is. I found this, which was actually on the same length as this. As you can see, it's an exact blue. And I might use this to illustrate along here. So I've cut it out. I'm hoping I have enough. I should do. And this was a little bit more. So I'm just playing around for a while to see what sort of border I can come up with. Already we have the nice curly shapes here, the swirls. Now it could be any lace. It could be any lace, any fabric that you might have curly shapes on, round flowing shapes. You might see it a bit better if I turn that over. There we go. See that? And this, and how they're already curvy. But you don't have to use this. You could just use thread. You don't have to have a background. You could use thread, all sorts of threads to get a nice texture. You could use the wool against satin, or sorry, against silk. So I'm going to spend some time just playing with this and see what I come up with, and I'll get back to you later. Right, I've cut a piece of card here, and it's the same size as the heads here. Now this will make working and designing a lot easier. So if you can see, this is the same size as the heads. I'm going to use this in a moment to place on the hessian. But before we do that, as you can see, I've cut out a piece of hessian on my cuckoo clock. I think I might have to take out his cuckoo. I've cut out a piece of hessian here, the size of a piece of A4 paper. Now we always or normally work to this size, A4, which is actually 8 inches by 12 inches. So I've gone round, I've measured here around the white paper 8 inches by 4 inches, but I've allowed a 1.5 border all the way around it. Now we need a border, so when we finish our sewing we have enough fabric to turn back, make it all nice and neat. So it now measures 11 by 12, 15, 11 by 12. I can see why that isn't 1.5 inches there. Yeah, it's 1.5 inches. It's not quite straight there. So the maths might be out. My maths might be out a little bit. But anyway, after I did that, after I've cut out the size I want, and I've marked the size of the sewing, where the sewing's going to finish, I've over sewn all the way around the edge. If I just lift this up a tiny bit, you'll be able to see the stitches all the way around the edge. Now, why I've over sewn, you can do this on zigzag on your sewing machine. You might not want to do it at all, But if you do, all you're doing is the oversew stitch we've done before, from underneath right the way round the edge, right the way round, just to keep these threads in place and to stop them fraying. I haven't done it here because it's been done naturally in the manufacturing process, so I only did the 3 sides. So that is now ready to work on. The next thing to do is to decide where you want to place your slow stitch, your heads. So I've played around with this and I feel happy with it there. That's not quite straight, is it? So I feel happy there. So once again, I'm just going to mark that. I'm going to mark that there and know that once I start applying other fabrics, not to go across there, because that is where my head's going. Now, does that come out on there? Yes. So this will now be kept free to place the heads later when the background's finished. So these are what I'm intending to use for the background. I explained that earlier. Now, do I want them that way or that way? Now I've decided I'm actually going to have them that way because I like the hessian or the burlap here poking out. I like that, and that will give a nice contrast between the softness of this background here, and that's the rough, the fineness of the weave here and the openness there. And there's a lot of contrast going on there. So we're still sticking to our complementary colours of blue and orange. So I thought I'm going to bring that down there, and that actually runs right into the seam allowance, which is good. I might bring it along there as well, so we have a distinctive border now for our piece of embroidery, which will go there. And once again, we have the nice little curved shapes left here. And then I have these. So I think I'll place, at the moment, I shall place them here. And I have that. And then I will do my slow stitching around here to get the nice round flowing shapes that we have on here. The lovely swirly shapes, the lovely swirly shapes around here and down here on this piece here. Now the only problem with this piece here, and that one will go possibly there, maybe. Any problem on this, you can see the hessian or the burlap looking through, and that looks gorgeous. I just love that effect. I think it's totally lovely, but it's screaming out for weaving, isn't it? So there's going to be a couple of issues going on here, to weave or not to weave, to leave these lovely spaces so we can look through and say, ah, that's on burlap or not. The same really with these. You can see the little flowers, and you can see the fabric behind peeping out. Anyway, that's going to give me something to think about. I'm now going away to a lovely little place in Sussex. We were lucky enough to be able to book a caravan. I just feel I have to get away. Social distancing applies, and it's basically closed. Everything's closed. But anyway, as I say, we have been lucky enough to get this caravan for 4 days. So I'm going down there later. I'm going to take this because nothing will be open. Now, I have this feeling that I'll be bringing it back probably finished, so it looks as if there might be a big chunk skipped, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to keep up to date with the video on my phone, because all my videos are done with a camera. But I'll have a go anyway, and I'll try not to finish, but who knows. So until then, until we see what I've done, or indeed haven't done, because it's near the beach, and oh my goodness, I intend to spend quite a bit of time on the beach just looking and walking, so I might not actually do any of this. So until then, take care, and I'll be back shortly. This is showing you the lace now tacked in place, and I do advise you do that. I've also mitered the corner and held that down with tacking stitch. And the next bit here, I've completed 2 rows of slow stitch in complementary blue, and I've also started to slow stitch now around the curls or the wheels. I've kept this in place just so you can see where the finished piece of work is going to go there. So it gives you a rough idea of what's happening on the fabric. These have been slow stitched all the way round. But first of all, I should explain, shouldn't I? This is the blanket stitch in orange all the way around the edge. And then following the curves here, the line all the way around here, I've done the slow stitch in blue, and that's keeping to the complementary colours, and then I followed it in orange. These lovely big wheels here, they look like wheels, don't they, all the way around. I followed all the way around like this, keeping to the border on the Aubrey picture, keeping to the lovely flow, the curves there. And then what have I done? I put the pinwheels, my favourite pinwheels, in the centre of each. Now I've only just started putting down the straight stitches here. I've managed to do what, 2.5, and there's no secret to this at all. We've done these all before. So needle in from the back, and you just take it as long as you want along the front. Just push it down, pull it down. There, first stitch done. Over again, through from the back, pull it, and as long as you want. And this is all you're doing, just straight stitches. I should carry on and do this all the way around the 2 sides here on each circle up here. I'm going to carry on and do that, and then I should sit back and decide whether or not I want to weave in between this here. Beautiful little boxes. I'm going to lift this up very carefully so as not to make you dizzy. Lovely little bit boxes here, just right for weaving through. The same here on these wheels. If you see all these little shapes here, I actually like the look of the hessian looking through. You can see the hessian or the burlap, lovely. So that will be the next thing to consider, whether or not to complete some weaving around these. I'm really not sure at the moment. It grows, it takes its own life as it grows, so be interesting to see what happens with that. All the stitches that I've used are stitches that we've used in the past. I haven't introduced any new stitches yet. I'm not sure about this. This is just ideal for weaving between, so that will go there, I imagine, at the moment, and then possibly that there, and that would be finished about there. But these are all just ideas at the moment, so I'm going to carry on and see what we come up with. So it won't be a minute. So what have I done now? I've put some slow stitch between these long straight stitches here, and I've used a contrast in blue. I've used a light blue against the darkness of the dark blue, so we have a design principle going on there. Now this here, I've actually woven this gold ribbon through the ladder work, if you like, that was running along here. Now this is woven, but I've used the same thread here in slow stitch. So one's woven and one is stitched. Now how I did this, I took ordinary ribbon like this, very narrow ribbon, and I cut up here. I cut along there, and it's a nice satin ribbon which gives a nice sheen. So that's what I did, just cut the ribbon up the centre, threaded the needle. I haven't knotted it because this would make quite a thick knot, so I haven't knotted this, and I've just popped it through. For weaving, I've just woven in and out, but for the slow stitch, I've held the back, the thread down. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger for you. Let's have a look. A tiny bit bigger. So I've held that on the back, no knot, and I've just slow stitched with it. Now the hessian is really nice. You need a big needle for the hessian. This weave, it's Ada, so this weave is quite tight, but that gives you the idea. Slow stitch all the way around these shapes here and all the way up the side. I've also just tacked on this piece here, what I'm calling the ladder. I've tacked that in place, and also this little piece here. So as you can see, this is just ideal. Let me stick that on there. That, once again, is just ideal for weaving between just in and out, over and under, over and under. It's just ideal, isn't it? Can you see that? Does that come out on there? So that is something I now have to think about, whether to weave or leave the fabric, the hessian, the burlap showing through. I really don't know. This piece, no idea at the moment, no idea. So each piece will affect the other. So I shall bring this down here, and then I shall take something from here down onto here, this piece here, so it's all related. Haven't actually finished with these yet, but I'm not going to finish these until these are worked, because these, what happens here, will have a knock-on effect onto what I do in the centres here. So this isn't finished, it's still work in progress, but that is how far I've got. Now for those of you who wanted to do similar here but haven't got the lace I've got, that is no problem, because just strip the fabric, and on your fabric just draw, if you wanted very, very similar to this, you just draw some circles around there. I bet that isn't coming out, is it? No. And so you're just going to draw some circles on your fabric like this, or you can make a template if you wanted to, but please don't use what I'm doing at the moment, using a felt tip on your fabric, because we have spoken about it before, about getting it wet and it bleeding. So use a fine lead pencil, or a pencil that is specifically made to work on fabric. Now that could be your template. You could put these on the edge of your fabric, 1 2 3. That's neat, isn't it? 1 2 3. So that is actually practically the size of these. And then you have your circles ready, just to treat the same way that I've treated. Now that could be on your strip, that could be your strip. So ignore that part there, ignore that. This is now your band. So you'd need to make your band 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 circles long, add maybe 8, so you have a piece here to either overlap or to mitre. and then you'll end up with a strip like this with your 7-8 circles on it, and then you can start just sewing as I've done here. Okay, so you don't have to have shaped lace like I have here. There are ways and ways of doing this. So anyway, I'm going to crack on and see what I end up doing here. Just found this pinwheel, and I'm just going to go over it again. I know that you've all seen this a dozen times now, but I will very quickly just go over it again, just recap. So we've come in from the back here, so imagine we've just come in from the back up there, and there you go. With your thumb, hold it down, space it as you want it spaced. First stitch, your thumb, you're holding it down into the center, space it as much as you want to space it, and there you go. And that is your pinwheel. Oh, it's so addictive, this. Now I'm sure you're probably all sick of seeing that, so I won't finish it, but there you go. That is your pinwheel. I'll do one more. Hold it down, thread down into the center, out where you want it, and there you go, your pinwheel. Okay, so finish there, because I'm anxious now to start thinking about this little piece of ladder here. I might introduce just a touch of another colour. Ooh, yeah, that bright red might be just what I'm thinking. Oh yeah, it might do actually. I might introduce another colour here, and it might be red, which doesn't complement green, or sorry, doesn't complement blue or orange. It actually complements green, but we are just being inspired, and that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, I'm eager to start this now, so I should be off for a while. This was a really nice task to do. I've added a ladder to this side here, and I've put a feather stitch going right the way down. The feather stitch has carried on along here as well. Now, why I added the ladder here, it didn't seem that finished with just the raw edge of the circles, and not only that, the edge wasn't exactly straight. So by adding the ladder to the edge here, it's straightened things up quite a lot. Feather stitch is always a beautiful stitch to do. Now the bit down here, I've slow stitched in blue. I've brought the colour blue of the circles here, I've brought the colour blue down here, and I've also brought the gold, the ribbon, down from here down here, and I've done a little running stitch, slow stitch, all the way around the edge, so it does come all the way around there. I don't think I'm going to add any orange here. I'd like to leave that quite plainish, the gaps in between quite plain, to balance the heaviness of all this. Now I've had a look at it, I spent time studying it if you like, and I've decided to introduce white. It needs another colour just to break up the intensity, if you like, of the blue and the orange. So I just need a touch of white here and there to maybe join it all together. I'm also going to add a little bit of sparkle. I'm not quite sure what at the moment. Maybe some beads here, or maybe some metallic thread, not too sure. These areas as well, I might, and it's a big might, leave those as they are, just so the hessian or the burlap is showing through. Now, as you know, it's all a work in progress, so I might come back later and it's totally different. So we will see. We'll just hang on and we'll wait and see what happens. Right, before I go any further, I thought I'd just show you how far I've got with this one here. I've added a button and some sequins around the edge. If I just lift that up slightly, you might be able to see it shining in the lamp. There we go. Now, the thread I've held the button down with is gold, and it's the same way that I did some sewing in the last video, by taking threads out of a piece of fabric and just sewing them through the holes. I have more buttons here, and this will just give you an idea of how I imagine it's going to look. I think I might be short one button, I'm not sure. These buttons were actually attached to a cardigan not so long ago. I forgot to hand wash it, and it ended up in the washing machine and came out like a dish rag. So it did me a favour actually, because I can now use these buttons. But I didn't want to go any further until I've just updated you with how I'm going to carry on. No big shakes here, just a button in the centre of the pinwheel, and at the end of the spokes a sequin. There's also a sequin in the middle there. Now I will carry on just to see how it looks, but if I think it looks a bit OTT, I might stop. At the moment I have a feeling it might just be subtle enough. I don't want the border to actually overshadow what's going on here. So I'm going to carry on anyway, and then think about this bit here. I did get the white thread out to have a look to see how I could weave the white thread through this and down here to bring it all together. And then I spied the buttons and the sequins, and of course the plan went right out of the window. So I will carry on now and just see how far I get, and I'll get back to you as soon as I think it's taking shape. So just hang on for a minute. So here we have the two finished pieces. The borders on top. I'm just going to show you the inspiration. So this was the inspiration, the border around here. We didn't want to copy it exactly, but just use that. And I've used 2 sides for my border. So there they are, the one and the 2 sides, and a little bit down here. I've used buttons along here. Now each of these buttons are sitting on a large sequin. So they've been sewn in one with threads from fabric that I removed. It was quite difficult actually to sew them in one go, and then I went back and I sewed the top sequins on individually. And I have to be honest, for the first time I did that with her from my phone. For the first time I've actually glued some of them just underneath very slightly, just to make sure they're secure. What else did I do? You've seen all this before. Now what you haven't seen are these more buttons, very tiny buttons here, with sequins once again. And now these sequins were just like earrings. The centers were missing, and the buttons actually fitted straight into the centers, so that was really good. So this is the finished one here. Now this will be stretched. This needs to be stretched into shape because it's a bit skew whiffy at the moment, so it will be stretched, and this piece will be stretched as well. Now I don't think you've seen this with the faces finished. Now this is the inspiration. So as you can see, I took this out and I took the hand out. The faces throughout the whole of this project have been the hardest to do. I didn't want to copy them. They're just for inspiration, as is the hair. So I've just used the shapes, the face shapes here, which are basically the same shapes actually, but I didn't want the exact replica of the faces. So I've muddled my way through here, and I have sequins on, elongated sequins here, and I've brought the hair around with slow stitch. I've slow stitched both pieces on. That has a green sequin. I'm going to see if I can just make that a little bit bigger. Let's just see. Yeah, that might just do it a little bit more. Yeah, right, pull that down slightly. So the faces were extremely hard to do. Apart from the slow stitch here, I have 2 cross stitches here across the sequins there, and I think everything else is quite straightforward. There we go, from that to that. Now once again, this will need to be stretched as well, because it's quite out of kilter as well. Now the way that we're going to stretch this will be to damp stretch it, and to damp stretch it I will do this with either paper or cloth. Wet the paper, wet the cloth, put the 2 pieces, 1 for each, on a piece of wood, and I've got some old chairs I'm going to use, and then the fabrics are placed over the wet paper or the wet fabric, and they're pinned down, and they're left overnight to dry, and when they dry they're nice and flat. So that's my next stage, and then we'll be on our way to actually finishing it. It seems to have taken a long time. I really didn't want this to overrun, but it has. But having a look on the screen, you can actually see here that's come out really well there. You can see how that is raised. That Italian quilting there is raised, and you get a better look there at the slow stitch, and it's all raised there as well. So I'm now going to carry on, and the next bit will be to mount it, which is real fun, so bear with me for a while. I'm now holding the camera by hand, so I do apologise if it's very shaky. These are the 2 pieces of work now, and they're stretching on 2 very old chairs. This one, the burlap, is being stretched over a wet tea towel and securely pinned to the chair. The burlap really needs a good stretch. This one is being stretched on another chair, and it's being stretched over paper. Underneath the gold fabric there's a pile of paper, and the pins have actually been banged into the wooden chairs, into both chairs, with a hammer. They're going to be hell to get out, but that's how to stretch your embroidery. The 2 pieces of work were hanging for 24 hours. This one doesn't look much different. The background doesn't look that different, but the hair, the lines of quilting and the slow stitch on the hair has really sort of sprung up, and it's really 3-dimensional now. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger just to see if you can. Yes, yeah, if you can see that a bit better. Can you see the raised lines now? And there, all the raised lines here. So this one now is ready to, I'm just going to take that down again. This one is now ready to be backed with the card that we've been using. So what I've done, turned it over, and I've very gently already put a pencil mark all the way around it. I want a pencil mark all the way around this size, because this is the actual size now of the finished piece. Now, to make sure I got that in the center, I cut a piece out of plastic the same size, and I put the plastic down. Wonder if you can see that plastic there. I placed the plastic here just to make sure that the design underneath was central. Either side had the same amount of space, and the top. Not too worried about the bottom, but the other three sides. And then when I was quite happy that the design is now in the center, I put the card back down like that over the plastic and made some lines around here. So I'm just really going over what I've already done off the camera. So now that's left a line all the way around the edge here, and that is where the design finishes. So that is where the design finishes, but we need enough fabric at the edge to turn over like so towards the back. So when I cut, which I'm about to do now, I'm going to allow possibly about 2 inches, maybe, yeah, about 2 inches all the way around, and that should be sufficient. And I mean that's 2 inches from the pencil line, I should say, and that should be enough to turn over once we put the card down. So I would think it could be actually about 1.5 inches. So all the way around, there's the pencil line there, so I want to come over here. Now there are several ways of actually mounting your work on card or wood or whatever you want to mount it on. One is lacing, and that is what I would do if the back was to be shown. But because the back isn't going to be shown, I'm actually going to use double-sided sellotape. Now I need just to make this one, the calico, smaller or shorter than the front, and that will just make it easier to mount. So I'm actually cutting the calico the same size as to the pencil line. So I'm now cutting on the pencil line like so, all the way around. So the calico will fit the card, the mounting card, or the mounting board. It's actually quite a thick card. It isn't mounting board. And here as well. Oh, I don't want to cut the gold. All right. There we go. So there you are. Front, and now the back. Now I need to turn it this way. Now the card is going to go in there. Now it doesn't matter which way, there's not a right and a wrong with this because this will be covered up. So I'm going to pop that there. Now to keep that secure, I'm going to just put a little bit of double-sided tape just down the centre. You don't have to do this, but it makes life so much easier. And going to line it up with the pencil marks there and there, like so. Now this is going to make it easier to turn back. So let's start with a long, we're going to start here with a long edge. Just make sure you can see that. There. And I'm going to do the same here with the double-sided tape. Going to bring that down there. And then I might as well do that side at the same time. Down there. Now this is the tricky bit. Now someone, oh that's it, I was going to say one of you did give me a really good tip for getting that off. I tried to remember your name and it's completely gone out of my head, and I'm going back now quite a while ago when I was doing this. It might have been at the start on one of the journal. Oh my goodness, that must be a year ago, on the beginner's journal. So now we have the double-sided sticky tape along here and along there. Now bring this edge here, let's get that up there, bring this edge over and pull it. Now you probably need an extra hand. Pull it as tightly as you can so you get a nice, that's it, lovely. Now turn that round and you're going to pull it, press against the card as you do it, and we're going to bring that up there like so. And there, it's already taking shape. I'll push that up. Already taking shape there. Now here, I'm just going to cut the corners in slightly. Just chop those off to get rid of some of the bulk. Now if we were lacing this with thread, we'd sew those down. We'd make them really neat and we would sew those down, but we're not going to do it that way. So just pop that back a little bit. Oh actually, no, I'm going to leave those down and go right over them here. Now if you're using the more narrow, there's a narrower tape, it's probably half this, then you might want to use two. Depending on the thickness of your fabric, you might find that one piece, one length isn't enough, and you might want to do two like that side by side. I think for this particular fabric, because it's very light, I'm just going to get away with it. Now here, just bring the corner over slightly, and there, just bring that corner over just slightly, like that. Fold it over like an envelope and pull it. Oh, pull it, lovely. There we go. Now that will be tucked in later, so I'm not too bothered about that. Right, now this one is very important. Let's see if there's any give here that we need to disperse. Yes, there's a little bit up there, a little bit there that needs to be pulled tighter. It needs a cleaner edge than that, so I'm going to just go back with a tiny bit more of this. This must be quite a nice quality tape, because it's just the backing's coming off really easy. Sometimes it's a real pain. Right, now we need to get this tighter to just make it neater along there. So we're just going to pull it tight, nice sharp edge. So we're going to pull this as tightly as we can, just to get rid of that little bit of crinkleness there. And we pull this again. Now this is going to be sewn down, so any little pieces, really tiny pieces that are sticking over the edge, we can just pull those back with a little bit of thread as it's sewn into place. Now what I've just done here, I'm going to do on the other end. Now this side is a bit different, because right at the beginning when I started the heads, if you remember rightly, I did a couple of rows of slow stitch here I took the hair right down. Don't particularly like that, but I've left it there anyway. But I'm hoping I can pull that down a bit. I really don't like that. Yeah, I think I might even, if it doesn't look too good once I've done this, the next time you see it, it could look shorter, and I might make the card a bit smaller. You can see the stitching up close when you look, but I don't think it actually adds anything to the design. It was to look like wispy hair, but didn't quite turn out that way. So I have a feeling I might shorten the card and wrap that hair underneath. So there we are, and that is that done. As I said, some of these little pieces here that are sticking out, we can pull in when we sew it down. Now, just to give you an idea of what is actually going on, this will be sewn on there. So that will be sewn on there, and then if I turn it round this way, you'll have a better idea then. That will be sewn down there, and then this, the background, will be treated in the same way as this, and it will be mounted on a larger piece of card or a piece of wood. I haven't found that piece yet, but if I see if I can make that smaller now. No, but that is how it's looking at the moment. Now, it's very bright out there, and I'm aware you might not be able to see this side, so let me just see if I can block. Oh, there, yeah. So that is how, yes, I don't like that piece there, so I will actually shorten the card. So next time you see this, it will be without that piece there. Okay, I'm going to do that now, and then I should sort out some card for the background and set about sewing this onto the burlap or the hessian. I didn't actually shorten the card. What I did, I moved the design down a bit, so there is now quite a bit at the top here and around this side, which I quite like, even though that isn't central anymore. If you can see here, the design is coming right off at the edge of the card, but it isn't there. There's quite an edge there, but I think that, I mean, it's purely by accident. I think that actually balances well with this, just by having that little piece there. You see that, and it's very narrow from there. It sort of joins in with this, and I just think it gives it a balanced look. And that, as I said, that was purely by accident. When I realised what I'd done, I thought, oh no, it's not going to be central, but then it doesn't have to be, and it will finish there. So at the moment, I'm feeling quite pleased with that. Now the next thing to do, I've stuck it down like tacking, if you like, with the double-sided sellotape, and all I'm going to do is an overstitch all the way round. Now it doesn't have to be very small and neat. We just want to get this sewn down. I'm sure that the double-sided sticky tape would hold it, but I don't know for how long, because I don't really rely on it that much. I wouldn't stick something down in favour of sewing it. So in through the back, in through the hessian, into the orange fabric here, just going to pull it tightly, and then back into the hessian underneath the card where it can't be seen. Tiny little oversew back into the hessian, and then back up into the orange fabric, and that's all I'm going to do to secure it all the way around. I have matched the thread as much as possible, but it might look quite nice actually to do a big cross stitch all the way around in a different colour, but I'm not actually going to risk that. Now if you can see that, it's just a little stitch and already it's holding it down. I've done that much there. Now I know it's impossible to see that, so to see it there, so let's have I'll chop that there. Now if you imagine that this is the orange card and this is the hessian, the stitch I'm going to use is very, very simple. So the calico has now become the hessian. I'll see if I can make that a little bit bigger. No, I'll have to hold it up to the camera. So this is now the card with the faces on it, and this is the hessian. So the needle comes through the hessian and it picks up some of the orange fabric with the faces on, okay, and then you go back into the hessian underneath. If you can possibly get it underneath, then the stitch is hidden. So you're now in where the faces are, back into the hessian, and then back up, oops, back up into it can't, oh, it's not playing ball, is it? There, and I'm going to do that all the way around, and that is not going to take very long. So back into the hessian, tiny little stitch there, and then back up, little hem stitch, there you go, and that is quite secure. So I should carry on with that. That's not going to take very long, and then this, the whole thing will then get mounted on a piece of card or wood, and it will be practically finished. So I'm going to carry on with this for a while. It's quite a nice thing to do, and I'll be back shortly. Here's the finished piece, completely finished now, and you probably see that it doesn't look anything like it did when I finished a couple of minutes ago. I've added this piece here and along there. I've taken the design from here, the ladder. You see, remember the ladder from there and the ladder from there. And I've added the ladder there and here, but I've woven the gold ribbon which runs round here. I've put the gold ribbon right the way through the ladder, and I think that is just the finish that it needed. I've kept these little pieces of hessian showing because I just think that gives a really nice contrast between the roughness and the open weave of the hessian against the smooth close weave of the other fabrics, especially this one. What else did I do? I think that's about all here. The ladders here and here, they were woven through and then they were over sewn each side. So the over sew was the same stitch that I showed you earlier. Very easy, very quick to do. The back, I added a piece of white fabric, just a little piece of fabric that was in the rag bag. I haven't even over sewn it here, folded it in here. It's been cut here with the zigzaggers, the pinking shears, so it won't fray. So then I've over sewn it to the back of the board. I don't know if I explained or not, but the mount is actually a book cover. It was an old book that I'd been cutting up for journaling, and I was left with this really nice cover, and this is just one part of the cover. I think it was the front part. So if you're going to have the back of your picture exposed, you might want to do this. Just a piece of fabric like so, pretend that's the fabric, like so, and then a nice little oversew all the way around, okay, from one edge to the other, and it neatens it up. This is actually going in a frame, so it really didn't matter whether or not that I tidied the back as neatly as this, because as I said, it will be going in a frame, never to be taken out, never to be looked at on the back. But I just think it does give a nice finish. So there we have it. I'm just going to enlarge that just slightly, if I can line that up there just slightly, so you can have a little bit of a look close up. Can you see the Art Nouveau influences here? The Art Nouveau, the curvy shapes, the really nice organic flow here. So I hope Aubrey Beardsley would approve of what I've done to his piece of work and wouldn't see it as a travesty. Well, fortunately or not, we'll never know, will we? But I'm just going to recap now on our inspiration. So there's the two lots of inspiration. Oops, there are the heads, the two heads there. I particularly like this head. I like that one. This one gives me the heebie-jeebies for some reason, and I think it's because there isn't enough shape going on here. So if I were to do this again, I would actually curve that round. I would shape it. At the moment, to me, when I look at this head in isolation, all I see is a gigantic haystack with a tiny little face peeping through. Now, I wish I hadn't said that, because I'm sure you're going to look at it now and say, oh, do you know what, she's right, that is a haystack with a face looking through, which is a bit eerie. So that was the inspiration for the faces, and just a little recap on the border, and here we are. So I started off thinking I'm just going to do that side and that side, but our progression of an idea progressed into the 4 sides. And there we go. I'm very tempted to put a little button affair here, but I really think that might be over egging the pudding. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think next time we will have a rest from this. This was a major project. I'm going to make that smaller. This really was an enormous project, because there's an awful lot of things going on in the slow stitch and the quilting, the applique, the joining this, which was a perfect little picture in its own right, but placing this picture on the background and everything that's gone on here, the what was that, feather stitch, the button work, and all the slow stitch here, and the spoke straight stitch, and the pinwheels that we can't actually see, so, and weaving as well. So in this piece there's a load of techniques, so good luck with that, and I do hope that you try it, because I just love this. I really do love that. So thank you for joining me, and keep the comments coming in, because I really love reading them, and I'll get back to you with a new project within the next week or so. Okay, so